The next step with these infinity models I have here is to do some pan lining just to bring out some of the detail, because the airbrushing is obviously a flat colour on most of these, and just on the armour and bits and pieces like that I want to add some definition. So how am I going to do that? Well, I want to make sure that I'm not using a very thin ink that goes all over the place, so we need some definition, and at the same time I don't want something too heavy. I don't want to go on with a really thick paint, so I want something that's quite fine and transparent. Now to do that, what I do is I mix in the Privateer Press P3 mixing medium with one of their paints, which is a sort of a darker Signar blue base it's called, but it's a really nice fine pigment, and I'm going to do that on a wet palette. So I do that by, I've got this sort of plastic container wet palette which has a sponge in the bottom, and well, basically I'm using a spray. Always handy to have one of these sprays around when you're doing any kind of work with miniatures, really, especially with airbrushes, because you can clean the pots out really quickly. So here I go, just spraying some moisture in there to make it thoroughly wet in the wet palette. Next step, I use a sheet of just standard kitchen roll, and that soaks up a lot of that moisture. And then finally I have a set of these. I mean, this is just tracing paper, but Privateer Press did these in packs, and I had a couple of these. It's just a convenient way, really, of having an extra sheet for your wet palette handy. And almost managed to tear that one out without ripping it apart. So the reason I have the this tissue paper in first of all, the kitchen roll, is because it has a more even surface for the tracing paper to adhere to. If you put it straight on the sponge, it tends to curl up a lot more. This will curl up anyway. There you go, look, curlage. But eventually it kind of settles down. Now you might need to hold it for a little bit just to keep it from curling up. Push it down. So we have my wet palette now, so in between uses I can just close that down. So here we go. Shake up some of the blue stuff. Pop that lid. Now I usually just use a big old brush here, actually, to some filthy old brush that I'm not using anymore, just to give myself a blob or two. Try and do that so I don't get the camera in the way of filming. So there we go, the blue is on. Give that old brush a clean. Sorry about the noise. P3 mixing medium, blob some of that on there as well. Basically all the wet palette does is stops the paint from drying straight out. So whereas I quite often use one of these when I'm painting, which is a sort of one of these paint tray things, you can see I just put silver foil in there to means that you don't have to keep cleaning it, you just tear the foil off. But obviously the paint dries out quite quickly. You can keep the paint moist if you put enough in there, but I quite like using this as a tray. I did a lot of paint work on War Machine models a few years ago, and I used it all the time. So here we go. Paintbrush I'm using, Tamiya Modelling Brush Pro. Can't really see that, it's not zooming in, but what I will do is I'll change the zoom style now to a different setting. There we go, Tamiya Modelling Brush Pro, which is a size 0. Is it size 0? No, I think this is 00. It's quite a fine one. Because I'm doing the panel lining, you want something that's nice and fine. These brushes last forever, by the way. It's expensive. It's like, I think they're about £14–15 a brush, but they have a metal tip there, which is excellent. I think they're sable as well. Can't remember, but I think it's sable. So I'll make this a short one. I shall get the little tray thing out. a model, for example that one, we'll just show in the background that I'm about to mix this together. So I just take a small amount of the P3, mix it in on the edge of the paint, and it just makes the paint, it's difficult to see like up there, but it makes it kind of a little bit more transparent perhaps, and it should stay moist enough in there as well, so that will give me a nice panel lining kind of level of detail without being too thick. So there we go. I've got a bit on the brush, probably a bit too much on the brush actually, and this isn't going to work very well because I'm a long way away, and I'm now going to go silent as I start to line things, but here we go. Up underneath that crevice there, I want to keep it a little bit darker in that area as well. I can't even see this because I'm holding this so far away for the camera. I don't even know what's going on, but I am darkening those edge and around there too. So, can we get any closer? I wonder. Let me see if this thing can zoom in. Here we go. Zoom factor. No, wrong way. Well, that's got in pretty close. Yeah, I've made a bit of a bodge of it, but it's gone up underneath there. And, you know, then I've got to do the rest of it in the same way. Even in those sort of areas like that, I'm going to go in. So I'll do that. Live on camera. I'm going to attempt it. So I don't close this actually between sessions. I just did that because I thought I was going to end the filming, but I'll get a bit more of that thinned down paint. Again, you can see I've got quite a wet brush there on the end. Well, don't ignore the blobs there because it's just where it's been cleaned, but it's quite a wet brush. Pick this guy up, and then you can see where I'm going to do the panel lining. I'm going to try and line it up so you can watch the action. So in there like that, in there. Now it doesn't matter too much if you go out of the edge or if you don't complete it. You know, it's like there. You see I went just up on that bit and I hit the edge. Now it's quite a subtle result, and again you can see it went off the edge, but look, it is darkening it, and it's not like a really strong result that's going to scare the hell out of you that you're ruining your base coat. So other areas like down in there, and also because it's not an ink, it's not going to run all over the place. Yeah, so all around this area could do with some definition. And I'm just about running out of paint on the brush now. But I think you can see I probably could have gone in there a little bit closer actually. Now there we go, and I'm usually a bit quicker. Naturally I'm doing this on the camera, it's not that easy. But you can see the result in there, and you can see the result on the shoulder pad. That it's just darkening it enough. Now of course I'm going to go on with panel highlights later and do some edging, and of course having those three colours, then you've got your base, then you've got the panel lines, and then you've got the edges, will bring it all out quite nicely. So yeah, lots to do because I've got to work through those, but it is handy having the wet palette to be able to do that, and also using the P3 mixing medium. You know, I love using this stuff because it does make the paint more transparent, and it does flow really nicely as well. So that's it, a little short brief one. Yeah, that's about all I've got to say actually at the moment. I'll get on with doing all the panel lining with all these, and then I'll show you what the result is afterwards. Thank you, bye.